live up to what he. But I will say that I had Dr. McCoy before you did.
You work together.
But so yeah, thanks for having me. I'm a urologist. I'm at the MetroHealth Medical Center. I'm also medical director, the inaugural medical director for the Office of Equity, Inclusion, Diversity. In that role, I play a role in terms of trying to make sure the professional staff is more diverse. We all know the importance of having a more diverse professional staff, physicians, nurses. There's scientific evidence and research shows that it leads to better quality of communication, better compliance on the part of the patient, and better outcomes. So I've been at MetroHealth now for about 1.5 years. Prior to that, I spent about 28 years at Cleveland Clinic practicing both urology and kidney transplantation. I had a number of leadership roles at the clinic. I was on the board of governors, board of trustees, directors. So I had a lot of experience in terms of focusing in on the professional staff experience. And so I'm putting a lot of that into play at MetroHealth. One thing that we do know, and it's been ingrained within our practices, that we have to focus in on the patient experience, making sure that patients have an optimal patient experience. But what is often overlooked also is that we have to focus in on the professional staff experience, because there's a lot of burnout in physicians and nurses, and everybody probably has heard there's a tremendous nursing shortage right now. So, and we have to focus in on the mental health. There's a lot of stress that mental health workers, physicians, nurses, social workers, especially. My sister is a clinical psychotherapist down in Houston, Texas, and she'll be retiring soon, but she tells me all the time about the stress that social workers and behavioral health workers, suffer. So I grew up in a little town in central Indiana, a little place called Newcastle, Indiana. Has anybody ever heard of it? You ever heard of Steve Alford, the basketball?
Newcastle, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Well, my lab partner at Northwestern in medical school was from Newcastle, Pennsylvania. Yeah, amazing. So I was the first, I'm the first male from my family lineage to actually graduate high school. My father would have graduated. Both of my parents were born in 1924. My father had to leave in high school in 11th grade to enlist in the United States Navy to serve in World War II. My mother was the first Black school teacher in the entire history of Henry County, Indiana. And you can imagine what she went through. There were a lot of parents who did not want their child in the classroom of a Black school teacher. So my parents endured a lot of stress, but they made a lot of sacrifices. I'm the only, male in my family. I have 4 sisters. And my mother, with 4 small kids at home, at the age of 40, made the decision to go back to Ball State Teachers College to become a school teacher, so that our lives would be, improved quality of life, standard of living. My parents, like I said, made a lot of sacrifices. They didn't really have a lot of opportunities that I've, had growing up. And as I was growing up, I remember my mother took me to one of her night school classes up at Ball State. I was 6 years old. I was running up and down the aisles, very rowdy. And she grabbed me when the professor walked in. And she introduced me to the class. This is my son, and one day he's going to be going to college also. It was right then when I realized that my parents had placed expectations on me to, get my education, to be respectful to my, teachers and professors. So I always point that out, that we need to place expectations on our young people to perform to the best of their abilities. When I was growing up also, my father, speaking of men's health and why I do, what I do, my father always told me that, and I didn't understand when I was young, he always told me that nobody cares about Black men. He said about Black people, but he said especially about Black men. But as I grew up and matured and had lived experiences, I understood what he was getting at. And as I went through college and medical school, he was always very, very proud of me, both my parents. But he would always push me. He goes, okay, you graduated high school, what are you going to do now? You graduated college, what are you going to do now? You graduated medical school. I'm thinking to myself, what can I do to please his, But his admonition for me was, since I had been fortunate, and I was where I was due to the sacrifices of not only my parents, but the generations of individuals who have come before. It was my responsibility to use my knowledge, education, and training to give back to the community. And I always, thought, how could I live up to his, his admonition that I do that? So as a urologist, we treat both men and women, but we also specialize in the treatment of men's health issues, prostate cancer, prostate disease. In 2003, my family and I, so I'll go back for a second. So when I was in college, medical school residency, I did a 3-year fellowship at Cleveland Clinic in kidney transplant, but all during those 17 years of training, at no time did I ever recollect receiving any education about healthcare disparities, health inequities. It wasn't until 1996 that I finished my formal training that I learned about President Clinton's Healthy People 2000 initiative. The goal was to eliminate health disparities by the year 2000. And I looked around at Cleveland Clinic at the time, and there were no structured health equity programs. And so I went to the leadership, and long story short, we were able to establish our Cleveland Clinic Minority Men's Health Fair in 2003. But in the several months leading up to that, the way in which I conceived, starting or developing this Minority Men's Health Fair, my family and I took a trip to Cincinnati to the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center. Has anybody ever been down there?
Yeah.
It really provided me with an epiphany, and I got actually very angry looking at all the exhibits, and they had the shackles that the slaves around the neck, and the spikes, and the leg ankle shackles. They actually had pictures of lynchings, postcards that actually people at the time in the 50s and 60s would actually put in the mail, and they had pictures of people having picnics during lynching. I'll say it this way, it pissed me off, it made me so angry. And so I remember driving back to Cleveland Clinic, sitting in the organ preservation lab, remembering what my father said: nobody cares about Black men, it's my responsibility to give it. That's when I conceived this idea of developing this Minority Men's Health Fair. So we're in 2 weeks, or actually no, next week, April the 27th, we're holding our second annual health fair at Metro, which actually represents our 19th year. If it had not been for COVID, it would have been our 21st year. So, and again, I'm not going to reiterate what Dr. Hall said about all the health disparities, but we don't have to accept the fact that Black men have, suffer and have a greater burden of disease and lower life expectancy. There's something that we can do about it. And a lot of it rests in our ability to more effectively build trusting relationships, like Dr. Hall said, and encourage the community to understand the importance of preventative health screenings. I'm going to close by showing a quick video. We were supposed, I was advised to say a little bit about research. And we do need more research in all of these areas, whether it's hypertension, heart disease, kidney disease. But another area that we need more research in is in Alzheimer's disease. My father suffered and died from Alzheimer's disease, and I was actually just asked to be on the board of the local Alzheimer's Disease Association. So I'm going to become more involved in this area in addition to continuing the work that I'm doing. But I just want to show a real quick 3-minute video of how this has personally affected me and my family and my father. This is back in 2008.
Situation where I became the caregiver of my father. He was given a diagnosis probably about a year and a half ago of Alzheimer's disease.
No gray hair.
And we recognized over a long period of time that it was becoming normal. And so when they actually put a diagnosis on the situation, it was kind of a shocking revelation. Alzheimer's disease actually is a progressive disease, although it can be controlled with medications. There's different degrees of severity. And my father, probably about a year ago, seemed to be in a more severe state. than he
National
was.
Senior Olympian.
He suffered from, some anxiety, a lot of fears and just especially fear of being alone. As a child, you never really know exactly when that transition is going to come. It's not inevitable in terms of making that transition from being a child to caregiver. It was really just second nature that was something that I had to do. It was my responsibility. My father has been living with me probably for the last 2 years. He's expressed the fact that he feels much more comfortable and better actually just being, in the environment of his family, as opposed to trying to live alone. It's really been a blessing to be able to see that he's doing well. He's capable of doing a lot of the activities that he did before. He's capable of continuing to participate in his senior athletics. He's the current national record holder in 4 track and field events with the National Senior Games Association. He set national records for the 100 meter, 200 meter, 400 meter, and the long jump. So he's able to get back into those activities and participate. I'm just actually happy that he's out there competing. I'm proud to see him do that. There are many 84-year-olds that can actually, do what he does. Obviously, we're not happy that he wasn't able to live on his own, that he's developed some forgetfulness. But at the same time, he's there with us physically every day. So, if you look on the positive side, there's always a positive side to every situation.
Those 2 little girls are a couple of my daughters. They're like 24 and 25 now. So. But by the way, we were approached when we were out at the Senior Games in Stanford. This was a spontaneous video that they asked us to record back in 2008. I had forgotten all about it, and I was doing an internet search about our Minority Men's Health Fair, and it just popped up on my computer about 3 years ago.
Wow.
So that's him coming to me,
Yeah,
from beyond and telling me I need to get involved with this. So thanks for having me be part of the panel. Thank you.
very nice.
Thank you so much. Dr.
Thank you.